everyone, it is Yamina. I hope you all are doing well. In today's display for my screen, it is a little diorama of a family and friend group of Barbies, Ken, and Chelsea dolls and baby dolls as well. They're all related in some kind of way, whether through marriage or friendship or family. Like, yeah, they're I have a whole story about how they're related to each other, and then they're friends as well. But I'm going to be talking about family. So some things that I learned when I did Ancestry.com back in 2016 is I found out that you can have half aunts, and I think probably everybody else besides me knew that, because my aunts, my uncles are just who they are. And I personally, I grew up knowing only my maternal aunt and uncle, and it turns out my father's side, I have multiple aunts and uncles. Not all are still alive, but I do have multiple. And I have cousins from them, and then from my maternal side, I have cousins from them. And yeah, so I found out that basically, if I remember correctly, like literally all of my aunts and uncles are like half aunts and uncles to me. And I was just like, well, who knew that was a thing? But it's because my mom's siblings are half siblings to her, and the same thing with my father's side. I think he mostly has half siblings, but on my mom's side of the family, we never called people halves. And that's unfortunate that I wasn't raised knowing that, because there's nothing wrong with having half siblings. It's just I wasn't raised with that terminology, and I actually thought that terminology was only for people who had half siblings because their moms were different. I didn't think it was for half siblings because their fathers were different. Even in the Bible, like two examples of half siblings, they actually were married to each other because they had different mothers. And I was just like, oh, okay, that's what makes a half sibling. And no, turns out you can have a half sibling if they have any different parent from you. And I found that out in college myself. I called all of my siblings, and then I came to realize that I only have one full sibling. And my other siblings, they all have other half siblings besides me and my brother. But me and my brother are each other's only full siblings, and we don't have any other half siblings in common with each other. Is our siblings that we actually grew up with. So I mentioned before that I have four siblings. I'm the oldest, and yeah, and my three youngest siblings are my half siblings. And I found that out, like I said, in college, but I never really took it on. And every time I tell people how many siblings I have, I always say four, because that's literally who I was raised with. It doesn't matter like who their fathers are. We all have the same mother, and that's just how I was raised. If it comes down to it, like I always tell people, yes, we do have different fathers. That's obvious. Once you look at us, it's kind of obvious that there's something very different about how we look from each other. But yeah, so that factor came up as well. So I found out about half aunts and uncles, and then half siblings when I was in college, half aunts and uncles in 2016 when I did the Ancestry.com thing. And then, let me see, what else was I going to bring up? I also want to bring up that, what was the other thing I wanted to bring up? That's goofy. Why am I forgetting stuff? Because I have a few notes here. What makes a family? So also another thing that I found out, so I don't know how everybody else was raised with this terminology, but I grew up with terminology that my first cousins are the children of my aunt and uncles, my aunts and uncles, on father and mother's side, and then father's and mother's sides. So that was my first cousins, and then my second cousins were my mom's and my father's first cousins, and then my third cousins would be my grandmother's first cousins. And I don't know if that's accurate, but obviously they're all cousins in one way or another. But I found out that some one of my second cousins, I found out that his children would be considered my first cousins once removed, and they are the generation, like, that cousin's children are about my age, but he is my mom's first cousin, and I consider him to be my second cousin. I don't know if that's how Ancestry.com labels it, but his children are my first cousins once removed. And I was just like, great, now something else to blow my mind, right? So I don't know what the terminology is. I've always been fascinated by how different cousins are labeled, but I've never been able to find something that consistently gives the same answer. Like, every different thing just gives different variations on how to say it, and none of them seem, they don't make sense to me. So I still just say first cousin, second cousin, third cousin. I don't know my third cousins. Maybe I do. Maybe I met them and I didn't realize that's who they were. I just know that they're my cousins. But yeah, my first cousins, my second cousins, and then their children, I do know them on my mom's side and a few on my father's side. And yeah, so yeah, family is interesting. So that was another thing I wanted to bring up. And then yeah, I think that's it. Okay.